what's your outlook for the year on, with administration changes and how that might affect some of the renewables business and activity on that front? Do you think that will serve to flush out some of the players who aren't for real and be left with some of the people who are actually going to operate these assets?
I believe so. I think you're going to see some of the subsidies and incentives being heavily scrutinized. Maybe looking at the actual economics, and they're not always great once they really get distilled down. I certainly don't think that it's going away, but the narrative has changed quite a bit, as I'm sure you guys have noticed since 2020. I mean, you hardly hear ESG anymore. And I mean,
Yeah.
that was all anybody was talking about a few years ago. I think reality has set in. The narrative has turned much more towards traditional energy sources fueling the transition to the extent the transition is going to happen. I think the timelines are getting further and further out, and interestingly, I was reading a little bit a couple days ago about how there's really a very poor correlation between the oil and gas industry and what party is in power in the White House. It really historically has not made a huge difference. What makes a much bigger difference is oil prices, tech, pandemics, wars, weather, business cycles, things like that. They've got an outsized influence over, the presidency. I don't know that the incoming administration is going to cause any wild changes, but what I do think is that we're going to see, see it much easier to develop on federal lands. I think that we're going to see hopefully some of the LNG export facilities really come online. I'd certainly love to see natural gas prices in the Haynesville and elsewhere get a little bit of a bump. So I think these are very realistic, outcomes. On the flip side, a drill baby drill mentality is wonderful, but too much of a good thing isn't always a good thing.
It's not. I mean, we've said it time and time again over, 40 years of business. We tend to do better. Oil prices are better when Democrats are in office. You can make money on top tier assets. You tend to the business is healthy. In general in the energy space, I think what we all would love to see is more use and of natural gas. It's an obvious solution. It's a great resource. It's obviously plentiful, and I think I hope to see more support of natural gas development to feed power plants to put more energy on the grid. Frankly, electricity demand is only going to go up. We've got a plentiful resource all across the country that can do that and support that, especially, in half of the U.S. very easily. So I know we would love to see that. Obviously, love to see those LNG facilities get built. Obviously, a tremendous amount of money has been already invested in that. You hate to see those projects sidelined for the sake of, of feathering the cap of regulators. So hopefully we'll start to see some of that in support of the U.S. natural gas business.
Well, and it seemed like that was a major campaign pledge from
Yeah.
Trump, and bringing in Chris Wright as the new energy department head. I think one of his first marching orders is going to be let's get these permits pushed through. Let's create a more favorable regulatory environment. And Europe, I think, is going to be very receptive to natural gas exports. Decrease their reliance on Russia and elsewhere. And, I think that could be a real game changer over the next couple of years. So fingers crossed, we'll start to see that sooner than later. I know a lot of our natural gas heavy clients are certainly hoping so.
Well, I know. I mean, our clients on the natural gas side have just been clinging on to their assets, right? Literally and figuratively, they've been trying to hold on to their ass for these projects because they're good projects. But a market price for natural gas being as low as it's been it's tough. It's tough for those projects to make sense. But
Well, and yeah, I think you're right, and I think some of the better capitalized and private equity backed companies are even looking to drive some consolidation ahead of a wave. I mean, it's a bit of a buyer's market right now, so we've seen quite a bit. We've probably done 30 or 40 Haynesville deals this year. under 25 million, just taking other parties out of title, consolidating leasehold, bumping up NRI, in the hopes that we're going to see things start to swing back the other direction
Yeah.
here in a couple of years. So certainly expecting to see some of these consolidation trends continuing as well.
We've seen it as well. I mean, obviously you got the big one with Expand, Southwestern and Chesapeake. That's a big one. It's going to be interesting to see what that new monster looks like. If gas prices tick up just a touch, they're going to be looking like a daisy. We've done a number of due diligence projects in the Haynesville, and we actually are starting to get some more. We got several on the in the queue if the deals go through. So you're right. Just in general, due diligence is picking up for us coming into the end of the year. That's always a sign. It's maybe anecdotal, but it's always been a sign of a healthy business for us. Whenever we're going into the end of the year with 2 or 3 due diligence projects up in the air and working and active, it seems like people are closing deals, people willing to invest money and are ready to go into the coming year. So, knock on wood, that sign continues because we're scrambling and real busy right now on that front.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. And one thing that we're seeing is, a lot of these transactions are less PDP focused and they're more PUD focused, which is interesting. I mean, companies want to stockpile inventory. They're looking for locations. They're thinking longer term right now. How do we guarantee that we can make a play and be able to sort of develop it at our pace over the next 10, 15 years. So I think that's a good sign for overall industry optimism. Like you said, that we're seeing capital kind of flowing into the industry again. We're also seeing capital discipline seem to be still kind of a driving force. And I think the fear is that if there's too much consolidation and they shelve too much inventory, it could lead to some industry slowdowns or slumps. But again, I think most of those will be cyclical, and I think the overall prospect, at least from our perspective, is good over the next several years.
Yeah. I mean, consolidation is what it is. It's happened, but one man's trash is another man's treasure.
That's right.
We're
That's
seeing
right.
these companies dump assets that, aren't their core focus. That aren't the juice of the juice and the Delaware. And a smaller company can make money on these projects. So we get a favorable environment. I think we hope that that'll continue to drive some activity by groups other than the majors that are left owning the wide swaths of the premium acreage. To your point, we've seen a lot of the same as well on some of these deals for more PUD acreage being allocated value or having value allocated to it. Did a really interesting deal, Sabine's acquisition in the Texas Haynesville, where it was kind of a 3-part deal where Diversified got the PDP and Sabine bought the PUDs, of HBP acreage, but it's just undeveloped. So again, building inventory, needing more inventory in their window, and so you see these types of unique deals being done. We saw the Cotier deal that just came across. They negotiated 2 deals at once and slapped them on the table at the same time. So interesting times. It's again a sign that people are willing to invest, and there's some optimism. At least they feel like, to us, it feels like companies know what the rules of the game are going to be, and they're willing to push and invest some capital back in the oil and gas space. So we're certainly excited about that. That keeps landmen and attorneys working. Keeps us landmen. The day AI hasn't taken over quite yet. They're going to need us for a little bit longer.
That's right. Well, an AI apparently takes a whole lot of power. So, the new growing technology needs are just going to lead to more energy consumption.